beside me are my partners in crime, Jeff Hornacek and the mad scientist Brian Banner. The movie in question today is DC animated Son of Batman, or SOB, as I like to call it. Before we bring in the bros, I want to do a quick plot of the movie. Basically, Slade Wilson, Deathstroke, wants to take over the League of Shadows, goes to their base to wage war. Talia and Damian, who is the son of Bruce Wayne, escape, head to Gotham where they think they are safe. In the meat of the movie is Bruce getting to know his son, then later training him to become the next Robin, and later face off versus Deathstroke. So, now that we're all caught up, Jeff, we'll throw it to you first. Please kick us off with your initial thoughts of this fantastic film.
I'll keep it brief. Fucking loved it. DC Animated does it again.
Okay, thanks. Banner, what do you think of
right.
this? Sorry. Okay.
No, I mean, DC Animated does it again. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I cannot remember a movie of theirs that I saw, or even a TV show that I saw and I didn't like. It's so true to the comics. It has this visual style that isn't really duplicated in anything else, and they just knock it out of the park. So I love this movie, as is no surprise.
Banner, your initial thoughts of this film.
It was amazing. I mean, it is no surprise to me. I've been saying this for years. The only thing that DC and you have to give credit where credit is due, Warner Brothers has done better than any of the other studios is DC animated films. Damn it, they can't do live action, but fuck, they can draw some pictures good.
Oh yeah.
The drawing in this was very well. I really like the story, and the reason I wanted to do the DC animated is I carry the DC flag on this show, and I've been known to bash them whenever they do something stupid, see Suicide Squad or Green Lantern. But with this, DC Animated plays it pretty close to the chest. They follow the comic books very well. This one they don't, however. Son of Batman, the comic book is called Batman and Son, if you ever read it. But just kind of after you've seen this story, basically Talia is not kind of the middle ground. She's actually the main villain, and Deathstroke kind of plays the middle ground. And Tim Drake is in it, not Dick Grayson, but I don't think any of us have a problem with that. I would always like to see Dick Grayson over Tim Drake. But
agreed.
What pisses me off the most about this movie, since I always pick on DC's flaws, is kind of like your kid coming home and flunking a reading test, but then he reads the first 4 paragraphs of a Sports Illustrated thing. So you're showing me you can do this. You can take a comic, come up with your own story, and make a fantastic story of it, just like you've done it, but you can't translate it over to film. That's what pisses me off every time I see these DC animated films. They are so good. The story is told so quick and so well. There's no, oh, what the fuck happened? Where did that scene go or anything? That's the only thing that really upsets me about it, is that they just can't carry it into film, because film is where you make all your money. But these DC animated movies, to take off Banner's point, it's the only thing they're really kicking Marvel's ass in, because they are very well done, and they're meant for our age people. If you watch any of these are not R-rated, but they are hard PG-13 for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I think the reason that DC is so good at the animated stuff, especially in terms of movies, is because they can do things and take chances that when you have Warner Brothers as a studio putting, a couple $100 million behind a film, you just can't do. Like, let's just go over a few things that I loved in this movie that I don't think we would normally see. Number one, let's just call it what it is. They sexually objectify Talia al Ghul and make her so over-the-top hot and a sex object for us that would never...
She reminds me of, what's her name, in Roger Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit?
Yes.
Dude, you know who else is really hot? Just an animated character? Lola Bunny.
Yes.
Smoke show. Anyway,
they do a Space Jam movie review sometime.
That's coming soon.
Movie review? Excuse you. You
commentary.
mean movie commentary?
Yeah, movie commentary. Maybe both.
Just fucking act together.
A commentary on a documentary? I'm down.
Another thing they just could never show is the battles between Damian and everyone else. Like, you can't have a live... Like, let's say Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke. You can't have him in a movie beating the shit out of a kid.
Yeah.
That just won't work. Killer Croc and his whole plot line with Langstrom, which is great, but like steroids are a very sensitive topic. We saw how Marvel and Sony tried to tiptoe around Venom and Eddie Brock kind of being an allegory for steroids, and that was a mess. So if you don't do something like that correctly and true to the source material, it just comes across like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. So those are just 3 main things that were awesome in the animated movie that I don't know if DC would ever be able to do in a live action film, just because of what's at stake when you make something like that.
Well, speaking of Croc, next I want to talk about the villains in or mentioned in this movie, and there are a ton. Obviously, Killer Croc, Joker, Two-Face, which are all in Arkham. Man-Bat, Dr. Kirk Langstrom's in it. Ra's and Talia al Ghul. LexCorp is actually mentioned in a business thing. Yeah, whenever they're in Wayne Enterprises. And the man that we need to talk about, who's going to be in the standalone Batman film, Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. So, Banner, what villain stood out to you in this movie and why?
Well, being a X-Men Marvel Fox guy, I'm just gonna go out and take the layup here. I love Slade Wilson. He was totally believable as this guy that could be exiled from the League of Assassins like he was, and took matters into his own hands and really portrayed all of that. And somebody I believed that he would have no problem beating the shit out of an 8-year-old kid. And
Right.
But at the same time, I also could believe that this 8-year-old kid could possibly beat him and take his eye as he did, which obviously I'm not as well versed in the comics, but that's not how Slade Wilson loses his eye in the comics. But I bought it, I liked it, and I believed him on screen. Obviously, it's a little bit different from live action, but I bought the way that he commanded the fact that, hey, I'm the bad guy, I'm running the show, fuck all you guys.
If they do a Deathstroke like this in the DCEU, I will be very happy. He, like Banner said, he has and I know that there's not an actor portraying him, obviously, but he has such screen presence, so much charisma. You actually buy in the beginning without any exposition or any setting up of it that, like, he's really fucking pissed at Ra's al Ghul for not choosing him to take over the League of Assassins.
They need to connect him somehow in the DCU to the League of Shadows. If not, then why have him fight Bruce, who's an equal adversary, I think, in the standalone Batman film?
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, because and Geiger, you and I talked about this off pod earlier today, but in the Batman movies, the thing that we've always wanted to see was his equal in terms of like a physical threat. In Batman Begins, I guess we kind of saw it when he would fight the League of Shadows. In The Dark Knight, obviously,
Bane.
Right, but even then, it was an older, more weary Batman that we got to see. I think in Affleck's, we will finally see him and Manganiello. They're equals in terms of stature, in fighting ability, in age. I mean, it's just going to be fucking awesome. And if they rip it right off the screen from what we saw in this movie, there's nothing that I could possibly complain with about it.
So who's yours, Jeff? Who's your favorite villain in this film? Is it Slade?
Yeah. Well, no, I did love Slade and a lot of his dialogue. For mine, it's more of a bit
fucking
villain.
Liar.
Yeah, it's more of a bit villain in Killer Croc, mainly because I loved all his comic arcs. I actually had his origin comic when I was a kid. Banner, I know you're not reacting to me. You're reacting to the awful mixed drink that you just made.
Look, I gotta kill this rum somehow. I even bought Coke, and it still tastes like dog shit.
Yeah. I think the reason I liked Croc was because at first I thought he was just going to be a throwaway villain when he was trying to rob those steroids and Talia shows up. And then you realize that actually Langstrom is connected to it because it's the same type of... It's the serum that Deathstroke wanted to use in partial with Langstrom's that he used for the Man-Bats to make just insane super soldier things, basically. So I liked him just kind of being woven into the story strategically, and I thought that was really well done. And he's just one of my favorite Batman villains in the comics. Geiger, what was yours? Was it one of those two or someone else?
Well, it's the way Croc should have been done in Suicide Squad, and we've talked about this, and we'll talk about it again once that shitty movie actually comes out on DVD, and I'll have to painfully do a movie review on it. But it's the way he should have been done because it's the way he's been done in every fucking comic book he's ever been in. He was on steroids. He shed his skin whenever he got off steroids. And that's the thing is I know
the
that
withdrawal scene was awesome when Batman went to see him, and he was like coming down off the steroids.
Which is a thing where I know people are scared to go for the steroid thing because of kids, but it could show the side effects of steroids. Like, hey, if you do this, you might fucking lose your tail or something. But
sorry, real quick, just to segue back, Michael Valentine, when he came on, which you should check out his movie Comics Beyond the Comic Book Pages, but they talked about how in the Silver Age of comics, that's why Venom was originally invented, to teach kids a lesson about steroids. So
yeah, it's all about lessons and stuff. Since you guys took the best ones, and I can't really use Lex because he's only mentioned in this, he's not in it.
It was really cool that they dropped him in there, though.
Yeah,
like that's another thing that makes. Sorry, not to steal your point here, Diger, but that's another thing that makes DC animated so much superior is they're not afraid to drop those little things in, kind of like the MCU does. They drop little Easter eggs everywhere. DC animated does that exact same thing.
Yeah, and and they had the Joker's shadow in there laughing, Two Faces in there for a second, but I'm gonna pick the Al Ghuls, and simply because I hate to feel like I have internet muscles, or I've been drinking, or since these movies have maybe had their 8-year anniversary now, I'm picking on Nolan. But I really didn't like how they did Ra's and Talia al Ghul in the Nolan trilogies, just because
not even
they
Ra's?
are so. What?
Not even Ra's? I can get the Talia complaint, really.
I like the actor that portrayed him and everything, but he's so sci-fi. You have to have the Lazarus Pit. This can't be a real fucking scenario. You have to have a Lazarus Pit. He has to be able to come back to life. Talia was so terribly done, I feel. Now, I'm not saying that she should be like this in the movie, although her cleavage was definitely on point.
Yeah, no, the clothes that she wore in this, she should definitely wear in.
I had a strong look at myself in the mirror today, Banner, because the last 2 people that have given me boners has been a Talia al Ghul cartoon character and a fucking robot from Westworld. So maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't fucking know.
And Banner, to your point, it wasn't the clothes that she wore; it was the clothes that she didn't wear that really caught my eye.
Fair enough. Clothes look great on. Clothes look pretty good when they're on somebody, but they always look better on the floor.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that's mine. I think that just seeing Ra's al Ghul, the Lazarus Pit, it's sci-fi enough. I liked. Don't get me wrong. I like Batman Begins and everything, but never seeing the Lazarus Pit, man, come on. That's like having Batman and never having a fucking Batmobile or something. You got to have the Lazarus Pit in there.
I understand, but
fucking dynamic.
To that point, like also if it would have shown up, especially like in The Dark Knight Rises, it really would have just thrown everyone off because that's not the world Nolan created.
Whenever they're writing all this, anyone could have trained Batman. Whenever they started writing this stuff, but they picked Ra's al Ghul for one reason, because he has the Lazarus Pit and he could bring back so many people that you thought were fucking dead, which leads to better comic book arc later. See fucking Red Hood, which we're gonna do that movie soon too.
Can they bring back Heath Ledger?
Oh God, if it could, it would be awesome.
Can I say one other thing that I don't want us to pass over on while we're still here? We all know my favorite DC character and the one that I want to see in a live-action movie more than anything is Nightwing. Now, and I think the great thing about Nightwing is he is, at that stage in his both crime-fighting career and his life as Dick Grayson, the only person who can call Bruce out on his shit, and Bruce will never admit it, but he actually listens to him. And that's kind of not what happens in this movie, but that's a reason that Bruce sort of sees like why he needs to be so strict with Damian, because he raised Dick properly, and that's how he needs him to turn out. But I'm just so glad that Nightwing is such a fixture in the DC animated movies. He's in so many of these, and I think that's just awesome because he's one of my favorite characters, and we don't get him in live action adaptations.
He needs his own movie in the animated film, I think, just like an origin story on him. But the great part about him is, because of Batman Forever and even kind of Batman and Robin, people get the Dick Grayson story arc, so we don't need to see him as Robin. Just have him as Nightwing and basically be like, me and Bruce are cool, always be there for him, but we don't agree on much.
Yeah. And
that's really cool how they do that story arc for sure.
They set up the relationship where you believe that they could never work together permanently, but like you said, if something arises and they really need each other, they have no problem. Yeah. I mean, they're still on the same side.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now we all agree that this movie is fucking awesome, but could this movie ever be a live-action film, or hell, could it take place in Affleck or Snyder's universe? Banner, kick us off with this.
I'm going to say, and I think I'm going to get a little bit of flack for this, I'm going to say that it can. It can be a live-action movie. It, however, cannot be in the DCEU. It cannot work in Affleck or Snyder's world. I think that for it to work, it has to be almost a standalone, kind of like the Batman Begins and the Dark Knight series. It's got to be just separate from everything else and literally just one movie. Don't try and make it a series or a part of a larger universe. And one of the things which we mentioned earlier is you have to have adults beating the shit out of kids. which obviously that's another thing that is rough to tackle and everything that. But you also have to have the right kid to do it. The first person that came to my mind was Asa Butterfield. He plays
Ender's
Asa
Game?
Butterfield. Yeah, he plays an Ender's Game. He looks young enough. Obviously, Damien will have to be a little bit older to do that, but he can handle the fighting scenes. He's 18, so if you go, oh, the kid thing, nah, he's older. I think he's actually 19.
I mean this as a compliment, but Asa Butterfield looks like a little shit. He could play Damian Wayne.
That's what I'm saying.
Perfectly.
And so, go ahead. What?
I was gonna say he has that like resting smirk on his face that I feel like Damien has throughout this whole movie.
Yeah, he kind of has that Jesse Eisenberg-esque to him.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, I'm gonna play this character the exact same way, but I'm just a little fucking dickhead, and I'm just gonna poke the bear at every chance I can.
One thing, this is kind of off topic, but I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is actually when Damien fights Ubu when he's chasing him, and that's actually when Nightwing first shows up, because it shows you that not only is this kid not afraid of anything, but
he's batshit fucking crazy.
Yeah, but he's also not afraid for a good reason, because he's a goddamn nut job.
Yeah.
Even Ubu was like, get this guy off me, he's insane, which I thought was really cool. Geiger, to answer your question, I'm going to regrettably say no to both of those, and the main reason that I would love to see this as a movie, but I think the main reason that I don't think it can be made is because Nolan did an entire trilogy of movies that we found out at the end were centered on the League of Shadows and the Ra's al Ghul and Talia al Ghul storyline. I think number one, all the things we mentioned that are tough to adapt to screen for a widespread audience. Kind of the same reason Marvel has done their darker heroes on Netflix instead of movies so far. But number two, audiences and the general audience, not the ones like us that have no life and just watch these things over and over, the general audiences would be very, very confused if they started hearing the names like Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows and Talia al Ghul again. And I know that it's a different universe, but even the stories being so different from what Nolan did on screen, which wasn't true to the comics but was still great, and what this is, which is true to the comics and is great, I just think that it would be too tough of a pill for a lot of the casual fans to swallow and make sense of.
I'm going to say no, too. Just because of the kid dynamic, it would be really hard to cast a kid that would play the role like Damien did in this show, given it is an animated show, but I think it was played very well. How he's kind of a smart ass, but he's not. You don't think he's a little bitch. You just think he's a smart ass, but he actually could kick some ass. That'd be really hard to cast. And the fact is that it's just a weird dynamic. Anytime you have a kid he'd kind of be the lead role, because most of this movie is basically about him, you'd have kids wanting to see it, so you'd have to make it poppy, but you can't do Batman and Robin because that sucks, but you can't make it dark because if it's too dark, then kids can't see it because their parents won't let them.
Exactly. You run that difficulty between, okay, we can make this movie what it needs to be, or we can make a movie that is going to actually make your money back at the box office and that a lot of people are going to be able to see. Now, I know everyone
I disagree. I think that you can make this movie on a smaller budget and
I don't know, man. There were
sorry, kids, you can't. We're going to tell you, just like Deadpool did, this is a movie that kids cannot see. Yes, there is a child in it, but you cannot see it. Sorry.
Benner,
You'll see it in 10 years when you're older.
How do you make this on a small budget, though? We have Killer Croc. We have all the man bats. We have the entire League of Shadows.
This is the thing, I think. The way they're doing Batman now, and it's almost like everyone wants not too dark, but with Batman, we want it really fucking dark. If this was if Marvel had this, I think they could do it better in DC, just because I think they could do it well with the kid dynamic and kind of make it
a Netflix original movie.
And I can't believe I'm fucking saying that, but I just don't think. Trust me, man. If it was darker and shit, there's like a 9-year-old kid that could beat ass. I'd be there fucking seeing it if it was rated R. But it would just lose a ton of money because a lot of kids is like, dude, I can't take my fucking kid to this.
You'd be in there with kids, and the scene where Damian Wayne claws out Slade Wilson's eye, you'd be like, fuck yeah. There'd be like moms carrying their 5-year-olds out of the theater.
Which that wasn't in the original comics. Arrow takes out his eye. I
Yeah,
believe.
Arrow stabs him with an eye, I'm pretty sure.
But there's another one that I've never read this comic, and people that are listening to this comment below, but somewhere I read that his ex-wife shot it out, too. That must have been his early comic book arc, because I've never read that before, but I looked it up this morning.
We've all
I don't
been
know if
there.
that's right. Yeah, I
We've
know.
all been there.
His wife hasn't shot out their eyes. So, all right, guys, that'll do it for us. Thank you for joining us, and if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes. Give us a like and comment on our Facebook page, tweet at us on Twitter at Bro4Squad, and subscribe to our blog on our website, www.bro4squad.com. And I don't know, after this, go click something else. What we got, guys? Westworld?
We got everything, bro. We got
We got some
Westworld.
Westworld.
We got a Mighty Ducks commentary, so just click on anything else, Bro4Squad.
It's theater.